Good afternoon from India. My name is Rajkumar. I'm the founding Vice Chancellor of Jindal Global University. Good evening to my friends in Southeast Asia and Australia, and early morning for our friends in United States and North America as well. It is such a pleasure for me to welcome all of you to the second day of this global virtual conference on the theme reimagination and transformation of the future of law schools and legal education. We are in the 14th thematic session of this conference, and on this theme, reopening campuses and social distancing norms. We have a very distinguished group of individuals, leaders in their own right, transformative individuals who have been part of the institution building efforts and initiatives in their own law schools and societies. Let me begin by introducing Professor Dr. NURUL BARIZAH, Dean of the Faculty of Law, Universitas AIRLANGGA in Indonesia. We have Professor NARUFUMI KADOMATSU, Dean of the Graduate School of Law, Kobe University, Japan. My good old friend, Professor Dr. LUTZ-CHRISTIAN Wolff, Dean of the Faculty of Law, the Chinese University of Hong Kong. My very dear friend, Professor Dr. PURVI POKHARIYAL, Director of the Institute of Law, Dean of the Faculty of Law, NIRMA University, India. And of course, my colleague, Professor Dr. OISHIK SIRCAR of Jindal Global Law School, Jindal Global University, who will be moderating this panel. My colleague, Professor Sridhar Patnaik, our registrar of the university, is not able to join us, so I will be standing in for him as the co-panelist in the session. Let me request OISHIK to take forward the proceedings.
Many thanks, Raj, and I again extend a warm welcome to all of our panelists for, I think, which is one of the most crucial themes as one kind of works through unprecedented ways of thinking about higher education, both in India and elsewhere. So just to restate the theme of this panel, it's called Reopening Campuses and Social Distancing Norms. There's something particularly, troubling in the opening words with which this panel is themed, which is the word reopening. And I say troubling because the idea of the university to begin with is, somewhere founded on the idea of it being an open space, both in metaphorical terms, but as well as, material terms. It's an open space for the exchange of ideas and knowledge, but it's also an open space in material terms in the ways in which universities work towards creating inclusive spaces for students and academics from all walks of life. So some of these kind of almost obvious ideas with which we think about the university space as an open space has kind of completely been unsettled in these months that we have lived through and tried to negotiate. I'm guessing some of the key things that we might want to focus on as we move through this panel and hear from our panelists can be broadly thought about under four heads. The question of reopening, I think, requires an attention to these four kind of areas. One, of course, is the question of infrastructure. What does it mean to reopen campuses in the wake of the pandemic? That is, if there is a wake, and when that might wake, in fact, begin. So, of course, there are major infrastructural concerns there that are sometimes beyond the pale of academic engagement. That, in a certain sense, tells us why it's so important to think about the role, the key role that university administrators play in making the university an open space, and more so at a time like this. So from the infrastructural concerns, one also moves to the pedagogical concerns, which is that what might a classroom really look like or feel like? How would one experience the classroom space? Would it be a completely reimagined classroom that, for example, uses hybrid methods of knowledge production and sharing? Would there be a need for an attention to different ways of teaching? For example, I'm aware that other panels that have come before this one in this conference have attended to the question of pedagogy and research. The third component, of course, is one about technology. Again, I think one that this panel would share some thoughts on, because it has kind of become the obvious source of possibilities in the wake of both the kind of experience that we are going through, as well as what higher education spaces might become if and when the the process of reopening begins. What is technology in a situation like this for reimagining education? Experiments are abound. I think there are lots of interesting models available to us that we are working with, but we also know that technology isn't always necessarily an equalizer of the kind that it promises to be. So how does one make technology a more democratizing process of enabling access to higher education in the context of plans for reopening? And finally, so we have the focus on infrastructure, the focus on pedagogy, the focus on technology, but there is a fourth aspect to plans for reopening, which somehow the first three don't tend to be able to address very well, which is the aspect of fear. So there is a certain kind of psychological dimension to the process of reopening, because it would require on the part of universities to be able to both promote a sense of safety at a symbolic level, but also at a more material level. What would it take for administrators to be able to convince parents to, for example, send their students, send their children back to campuses? So I'm hoping, I'm just opening it up in that sense to our panelists to, speak to anything else that they think might be important as far as the theme of the panel is concerned. But if they want to, take us through the theme by attending to one of these four, thematic areas that are quite key to discussions around questions of reopening. So I'll repeat the four kind of key components again: the infrastructural, the pedagogical, the technological, and the psychological aspects connected to the ways in which universities are gearing up for even kind of producing a blueprint of what might a reopened campus look and feel like. So we could follow the order in which the schedule has listed our panelists. So if I could invite Professor NURUL BARIZAH.
Yeah, thank you very much. This topic is a very wonderful and excellent topic. And first of all, thank you for the opportunity given to me. Thanks, Professor Rajkumar and Professor OISHIK and all distinguished presenter here. First of all, I would like to explain that in the context of how we should opening our Faculty of Law and facing the new normal, like new normal condition in the context of this situation in which, like in Indonesia, particularly in Surabaya, the number of infected COVID-19 people are still increasing until now. So probably what we think now is that we should not reopen our campus because if we reopen our campus, so there is we have to prepare many things. Actually, we already prepare it, but we have to make more convenient because there is change of physical face and also model of classroom. We have to change our library design, our canteen, room design must fulfill the requirement of health protocol with physical distance criteria. In Indonesia right now, particularly in my campus, Ministry of Education has already provided us with the guideline on how to conduct learning process at campus during this COVID pandemic 19. For example, we have to have clear distance in all area of our campus, including circulation of air, the number of students in class to minimize the risks on or anticipating the new cluster of COVID. In the entrance of a law school, we must be, that a special place for clearing our body. For example, like washing hands, check the temperature. We have to ensure that when we come to campus, we have to have masks, and this mask have to properly use. And all the sign of Faculty of Law must comply with the standard of physical distancing requirement. As I told you that in Surabaya, in which the Faculty of Law Universitas AIRLANGGA located, the rate of COVID-19 is still high, and university, I think, will not take the decision to return to the normal like pre-pandemic in physical mode. That is would not happening, I think, in the future, in the near future. I mean, of course, we do hope that the next semester, we plan already in the next semester on by the end of February, the campus will reopen for the student. But I don't think because this already December and the number is still increasing in Indonesia now, every day the number is still increasing 5,000 people. And it depends on the situation in our province and our region. And in Surabaya, now is still red or orange. So I don't think that by the end of February, we will open the campus and adapting with the new normal condition. And in the context of this, the university has already prepared and provide guidelines for all aspects of business process with health protocol. Campus have policy in all every activities when the student can come to campus, but until now there's no student come to campus except for the most important one, and it's just only one or two that make appointment to the university leader, the dean, or something like that. And lecture also do not come to campus. We work from home, and we provide a strict rule and strict control to the movement of people in campus. Administrative staff also just only few administrative staff that can have opportunity to come to campus. We also, in the context of a student group or something like that, we have to avoid like the crowded of students. So there is no student at campus until now. And we provide the guest policy for the student and activities for students in case for like last few months, there was a new student enrollment who coming in our campus, and then we have to everything was conducted online. So all facilities in class shall be added with a new device to make less hand contact, for example. And when we are going to the sixth floor or going to the third floor, we should, for example, did not use our hand to push the lift button or something like that, but all we have to change with a less hand contact. So that experience in sorry, there is yeah, and we have to think carefully before we decide to reopening our campus in the next semester, for example. And the decision shall be made not only for the perspective of economy, because in the last few months, the government also thinking we should come into the new normal as soon as possible. Because we have to, make our economic development into normal. So the decision for opening the campus, we have to consider many things, and we have to apply many principles like precautionary principle, transparency principle, and many other principles that is very important, like safety principle, safety standard. Right now, the number of people without symptom is increasing, so we have to ensure accurately for those who are going to come to school, who are in our campus, are not what we call has people without symptoms or infected by COVID pandemic 19. That's from my perspective. And then in the context of transition, I know we are going to think about a transition situation. Last 3 months, we already set up the rule from transition, or a new policy for transition. And we try that transition shall be made if we can guarantee that the number of infected COVID-19 pandemic among the community around Surabaya city are decreasing. And Surabaya already got the mark of green line from the government to enter into transition era. And in this context of transition, we think that the best policy that we already decide is to offer blended learning. Right now, 100% learning, what we call online. And in the context of transition, we decide that 25% the student can enter into campus, or 25% the lecture, or not the lectures, 25% what we call is subject course can be delivered through on campus, I mean offline, and then 75% we can deliver through online. What is the reason for this? The reason is because the number of students that we have, we do have more than 38,000 students in campus. And we have to reopening in the process of transition, one step by one step. So when if on the next semester we can implement transition process, so it means that 20% of the 20% of a subject can be delivered through offline, and campus student can come to campus around 25% of the student, and then the rest still, that study from their home. And after that, the next semester, the next semester, I mean, second semester for this, we can use a blended learning, 50% offline and then 50% offline, online. If after the first transition, first period of transition, we got success in this period. That the idea. And yes, thank you for reminding me and about the time. And in the context of infrastructure, it is also very significant issue at this moment. We already during the COVID-19 pandemic, we do a number of activities that we are not, we are postponed it. We are postponed it, like visiting scholar and also student mobility, lecture mobility from one country to another. And because there is no traveling, there is movement of people. So the that's the fund that usually we dedicate for that, we change it, we shift it into developing infrastructure. In addition to that, we also asking the government because the government also have a number of fund, even it limited, if distributed to many university, on how to make our campus is safety. So we already set up our infrastructure in facing a new transition and facing a new normal era. But no, it is the time, it is the time, because there is no student to set up all infrastructure that dedicate for new normal era or entering into normal era. The last thing that I would like to say is about whether the technology that we use now in the context of COVID-19, we are benefited very much. The technology provide us with tremendous benefit, particularly for like internet and what we call is internet, cloud data that support the teaching learning process. And I believe that because we are benefited from this type of technology and we getting used to, and we already aware that it make efficient for doing something, particularly for teaching. So I believe that this is part of benefit for the purpose of digitalization of legal education. Last time, before COVID-19 spreading into the globe, there was idea on digitalization of legal education. And I believe that this COVID-19 pandemic speed up the digitalization of legal education, and I believe that we will still use this technology even after the COVID-19 already disappears. So we actually try to improve the availability of technology that can be used for all aspects of pedagogical learning process in our campus. We also adjust pedagogical, what we call is techniques in our campus, including curriculum into the what we call is to adapt with the new situation of COVID pandemic 19. I think that for me, thank you very much.
Thanks a lot, Professor Barizah, for your thoughts. Can I now request Professor Kadomatsu, and just to use the prerogative of the chair, if I could request each of our speakers to restrict their initial comments to about 3 to 4 minutes, so that we do have some time at the end to field questions from the audience. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much. And it's a very honor for me to have an opportunity to talk in this precious symposium. First, to begin with, it could be mentioned that the pandemic situation in Japan is relatively stable, as in many East Asian countries. There have been about 2,000 total deaths in Japan, so it's a lower number compared to the other countries. But nevertheless, government had declared emergency in from April to May, so every university had locked down during the period and moved into remote teaching. However, in the autumn semester, there is the reaction of the university differs. Some of the universities has opened themselves, but the Kobe University has still the policy to basically focusing on remote teaching. And there are very strong public opinion who has a kind of nostalgia to face-to-face education, and they demand that the university campuses open as soon as possible. But Kobe University has been rather very careful to react to such kind of demand. But nevertheless, from April next year, April 2021, we are basically turning on, we are planning to basically move on to the face-to-face teaching and reopen the campuses. And our colleague, Professor OISHIK has summarized the point, task in 4 points. First, the infrastructure, second, the pedagogy, and third, the technology, and fourth, the theory. For the infrastructure, the most difficult task for us is we do not have big enough classroom in enough amount of classroom which is big enough to keep social distancing. So what we are going to do is very difficult. So at least our faculty took the policy not to continue remote teaching for at least a large scale classrooms, large scale courses. And we just begin the face-to-face teaching for the very small scale classes. Secondly, for the pedagogical point, our aim now is to make a plan to achieve the, so to say, best mix of remote teaching and face-to-face teaching. We are trying to get the benefit of remote online teaching, which we for the first time experienced in these 8 months. And so we are trying to combine the best point of the merits of each style of teaching. And third, technology is of course the base, should be the base for that. And that is also connected to infrastructure. However, in order to achieve the best policy, we must, on the curriculum level, we choose which courses will be taught online, which classes will be taught face-to-face, and at the same time, we must try to experience the so-called hybrid teaching, that some students participate online and some students participate face-to-face. But there is also a technological difference in it. We may not have a very good video equipment or the microphone equipment in order to achieve this response. So this remains our task. And fourth point, fear. We do understand that at least the sense of fear to this pandemic is differs among people and differs among our university, and it is very changeable based on the public opinion, which is very volatile. So we must take a policy to at least allow students, for example, to shift from face-to-face to remote when there is, of course, a real risk, because, for example, because of the age or because of the past disease or so on. But what should we do with just not the objective, but the subjective risk is very difficult. So how we evaluate this policy, we are still discussing about this, whether we can allow students to take courses online just because of subjective risk, and we are beginning to such discussion on that. So that's all from me. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot, Professor Kadomatsu, for your pointed responses. As I said earlier, I hope that we'll be able to take some audience questions to return to each of our panelists. If I could now request Professor PURVI POKHARIYAL to offer her comments.
Thank you so much for this honor. The Professor OISHIK has put 4 points before us, and that is pertaining to the infrastructure. And I look at it, this infrastructure as a university spaces. And then comes the classroom spaces and pedagogy and the curriculum, and then the technology, learning through technological advancement in the educating process. And the fourth is fear. Well, friends, I feel that we all live in VUCA 2.0 world, which is vibrant, unreal, crazy, and astounding. And in this VUCA 2.0 world, we are dealing with Generation Z learners. And these Generation Z learners have a very different characteristics than the millennials. And this is how this pandemic is providing us an opportunity to explore this learning needs of this Generation Z. And this is how I look at it. Because when it comes to the learning needs of this new generation, they are looking for the autonomy of learning. And when we are trying to shift the face-to-face classes to the online classes or to remote teaching, and providing them the ample opportunity and the resources and the recorded lectures at their disposal on the Moodle, on the LMS, at that point in time, they are exercising their autonomy, and they are also getting an opportunity to the pace with which they are comfortable to learn. So I always feel that asking all 60 students to sit in the class at the same point in time and compelling them to study or compelling them to learn what I'm teaching as a teacher in the classroom is somewhere an undemocratic way. Whether they have an opportunity, whether they have some kind of an autonomy over the learning processes. So probably how I look at it, this pandemic situation is exploring a way for the education administrators that how can we enhance the autonomy of learning with this Generation Z. When it comes to the university spaces, no doubt our perspectives towards all public spaces is going to be changed during this pandemic as well as in the post-pandemic world. But especially when we talk about the university spaces, how I look at it, that opening of the market or opening of the offices, or for that matter the malls, shopping malls, they all have a purpose, and it includes a transient process. But when we talk about the university spaces, I feel that it is a Shangri-La of body and mind. It encompasses the whole life wherein the students interact. They don't only learn at the campuses, they interact. There is a cultural communications, there is a holistic development, there is a fun, there is a life, the whole life in itself. So I would feel that when it comes to the allowing or reopening the university campuses or opening the university space at this point in time, probably may not be considered as a human approach, because and that's the reason how I feel it, that how I feel is that we need to shift our focus from education to the students, to the learners. I mean, so far the education institution has been only focusing about the type of the education, the quality of the education, the curricula, the pedagogy, the assessment. But probably we need to focus more on the learners. What do the learner want? What kind of a curricula probably the learner is wanting? What kind of a pedagogy the learner is looking for? And this is probably, I feel, is this remote classes and online classes, helping us to cater to the new needs of these learners. And I always feel that, when in face-to-face classes, there are 60 students sitting in the classroom, probably I would not be able to interact with each one of them so closely. But that is very much visible in the online classes, in the tutorial form, or in the what do you call the different classroom which I'm creating, a smaller classroom which I'm creating in a different learning platform. So I mean, I look at it as a very welcoming step, a very transforming step, and probably we as an education institute, I mean education administrators and all the teachers need to reimagine our role as a teacher. Because so far our pedagogy, our style of teaching in the face-to-face classes was very, very different than in the online classes. Because we all know that learning is a constructive process. Learning is being enhanced through giving different kind of an experiences. And learning is always a collaborative process. So how do we create these experiences in the online platform? So probably we need to shift towards our ability, our skills. We need to direct our skills and orientation of teaching to these online classes in the during and post-pandemic world. And when it comes to the last part of technology, again, I would like to link it with this. Are we being able to create a kind of augmented reality, or for that matter, the virtual reality in the classroom spaces? Because especially when we talk about law education, the clinical legal education, it is a big question that how to impart clinical legal education, how to go to the field, how we are being able to make students experience the societal realities. Can we do something through creativity and innovation by incorporating the AR and VR things in our classrooms and expose the students to these experiences with the help of this VR technology and AR augmented reality technology? This is how I feel for the opening remarks. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Professor Pokhariyal. If I could now invite Professor LUTZ-CHRISTIAN Wolff.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. Thank you. This is a very interesting and very important discussion. I'll start with infrastructure. Hong Kong, as you may know, is currently experiencing the fourth wave of COVID-19, but we have been back to in-class teaching since this term. Of course, some of the students, the international students, can't come back. And it's for this reason, amongst others, that we have to rely on dual mode teaching. So we all teach in the classroom. At the same time, we are Zooming all the lectures. The lectures will also be recorded so that students can afterwards watch if their internet is not available at time of the teaching. And of course, the in-class teaching is done with social distancing, which also requires that some of the courses cannot be delivered, as in Japan, due to venue constraints. But that has worked quite well so far. We will observe how the situation will develop, and that will then determine how we will move forward next term. But so far, so good. Everybody is quite positive and optimistic. As far as pedagogy, teaching pedagogy is concerned, Hong Kong, as you may know, had experienced the protests first, and then since January, as one of the first countries after jurisdictions after China, we had the pandemic outbreak. And that means for the last year, we have been teaching online. Much to our surprise, the online experience was much better than we thought. Students are happy. Feedback is very good. We experience, as everybody else, new dimensions of teaching. Some colleagues tell us that some of the courses, such as legal writing, are better taught online because you can share documents. You can share documents easier. So these are new aspects which I think need to be considered in the future. I think it is for this reason, and also because you can reach out to faraway areas, that online teaching will stay with us. Everybody agrees that in-class teaching had its major advantages, in particular because the teacher personality comes across in a much better way, but there are also advantages linked to online teaching. Just a very short remark. I would like to echo what Professor POKHARIYAL, sorry for mispronouncing your name, has said about independent learning. I'm a great fan of independent learning, and I believe that this should be an opportunity for us to consider how we can empower our students to engage in more independent learning. Next point, technology. I'd first like to make the point that the pandemic has certainly not triggered the use of technology in legal education and in other areas. It has just accelerated the use. And I will regard this as a very positive thing. We are quite happy. I'm a great champion of flipped classrooms, for example, where we use technology even prior to the pandemic. And I think this will carry on, and everybody will learn from this situation. So there are also positive aspects about it. There are also negative aspects. I don't know whether You have experienced this morning. There was a technical problem in the United States, which meant that Zoom was not available for the whole morning, and we had to reschedule an exam, and that happened for the first time. So it's not everything is perfect. The last point, fears, psychological issues. There are certainly issues that need to be addressed. The perception of students and teachers and other colleagues has changed. We are not as easygoing any longer. But I must say in Hong Kong, I cannot feel fear. Everybody has adjusted to the new normal and we are dealing with it. What I think is probably a fifth dimension and which needs to be addressed is the social dimension, which again, Professor POKHARIYAL has already addressed. In-class teaching is something which I believe is not just in order to deliver, to teach and learn. It's also a social event for our students and for the teachers. And that is completely gone if we are teaching online. And that is one of the major disadvantages. And when going back to opening our campus, your campuses, our campus is open, to open the campus again, I think the social dimension is something which needs to be appreciated and needs to be supported. I'll stop here because we are running over time already. Thank you very much.
Thanks very much, Professor Wolff. If I could now invite Professor Rajkumar to offer his remarks.
All right. Well, as a host, I'm going to mostly give away my time to my other panelists, but I'll quickly say that in a vast country like India, with so much of diversity and complexity when it comes to both governance and resources, there is clearly a dichotomy when it comes to the kind of institutional capacity for reopening campuses, including following social distancing norms. Of course, the most important challenge still being the state of COVID-19 itself, and to what extent government bodies, including regulatory bodies, will actually allow the full opening of campuses. Be that as it may, OISHIK's typology of the four aspects that he has articulated clearly shows that infrastructure will, in each of those four aspects, will have different, let's say, institutional capacities for responding to it. For example, as we are probably, better suited than many other institutions when it comes to having the necessary physical infrastructure and capacities to deal with it. We're very fortunate that the faculty members are, are conscious and sensitive about the kind of pedagogical innovations that they need to bring towards, responding to the new normal that we are all going to have. But when it comes to technology, I think all of us, to a large extent, have adapted. Many institutions, even those institutions which have slightly lesser capacities, have innovated themselves. I must confess that this conference and also the 1,000+ webinars that we have conducted in the last 6 months or so has really democratized and provided greater access to knowledge, brought the world and Indian institutions much closer than we would have had otherwise. So there is technology has actually become a very important tool for greater democratization of knowledge, but also creating greater access as well. The aspect with regard to how the new opening up will look like, I think a lot of us are anxious about the physical opening up of the campuses. But I think many of us are also closely observing the situations in different parts of the world. We knew that many European universities and American universities, including British universities, ended up opening the campus, and then they had to close down. And if they did open up, then after having students come to their own cities and university towns, they moved into online teaching as well. So I think while all of us, particularly in residential campuses, are eager and anxious to bring the students back into campus, we can't wait to have them here. We are also extremely mindful of the complexities involved. So in that process, one of the things that a lot of emphasis has been, at least in our case, is that we have tried to see to what extent we can reimagine the curriculum, the pedagogy, the assessment, the grading, the entire framework of examinations. All those things recognizing the situation that we are in. I do believe that there is so much that this crisis has provided us when it comes to rethinking the way we function. But part of the things is also about learning what we have experienced and then to translate some of those things even beyond COVID-19.
Thank you very much, Professor Rajkumar, and to all of our panelists for such a rich set of initial comments. We do have some time with us to take audience questions. They're not specifically directed at any panelist, but whoever would want to volunteer a response. So let me start with this one, which takes off from what something Professor Rajkumar was saying. So the question is, and I'm going to read it out, economic capital is central to the extent and nature of measures that campuses adopt to ensure effective reopening with social distancing norms. How do you suggest one can deal with this challenge with limited economic capital? So whoever wants to take this question, I think there will, in a certain sense, be a geographical dimension to where the experience of fund crunch will be felt more than in other parts. But I'm guessing the question of the role that finances would play in enabling or disabling the possibility of reopening is a priority for every administrator. No, I think
I can volunteer.
Please.
Yeah. I think this question is not COVID-19 specific. It's a matter of finding resources to support education, in particular legal education in our case. And every crisis, be it a war, be it economic crisis, be it a health crisis, will trigger the need for additional funding. And I believe it will be, in the first place, the promoters of these education institutions to look into ways to support a continuing high-level, high-quality education through injecting additional funding, and also for the institution to look out for donations and other ways to support themselves. And maybe this is also an event which triggers thinking about additional funding models. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Wolff.
Yeah, may I add?
Please.
Yeah,
please go.
in Indonesia, I think when we talk about how to fund the education in the context of the crisis like now, is that the government already set up the policy, change the policy for the at the beginning when the COVID-19 spreading into Indonesia, and then we close the campus, we close the university, and then some people asking on how to fund like what we call online learning process for it's not only for university but also for all education institutions, and the government decided to shift some funding from other project into the project of education to fund it, and we also ask a number of donator philanthropy who pay attention to this issue. But as I mentioned earlier, I talked earlier that we also try to shift some of the project that we are unable to conduct it due to the COVID-19 barrier into support the student for having like a quota of internet or something like that, including the lectures. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor BARIZAH. We have another question, which I think does speak to some of the points that Professor Pokhariyal, that you were raising with regard to kind of, turning the focus back on the learners. So, maybe you could start us off with your response to this question, and we could, take any other responses that might be there. So I'll read out the question for you. So for all its benefits, social distancing has affected the mental well-being of several people across the globe. At least working from home has allowed students to stay in the comfort of their homes. However, if campuses are reopened with social distancing, students will have to move back to living independently in hostels. In such a scenario, how will universities address the mental health concomitant to social distancing and the pandemic? So once one kind of turns the focus onto learners in the process of reopening, what would universities do to attend to their mental health concerns?
Well, it's a very vital point because during the entire period and even before pre-pandemic world, mental health amongst the youngsters was a great crisis. And, that has been a mandate to all the universities to, provide the services of the counselors for them who can occasionally, talk to them and, try to resolve their issues and concerns because these generations, with reference to their socializing ability is also in crisis because most of the time this generation are on Snapchat or Instagram. So there is no screen time limitations for them. And we all know. So, they at times, the way in which the older generations were socializing, the whole socializing context is being changed for this generation. So even pre-pandemic also, we had a great concerns for the mental health of these youngsters. And probably during this pandemic time, because you are not being able to meet, you are not being able to move around, you are not able to experience different things in life. And that's the reason that probably you have a greater concerns and greater issues that you are maybe facing with reference to your mental health. But when we talk about the reopening of the campuses, I am individually of the opinion that the campuses should not be reopened all of a sudden, no matter whatever the investment that we do with reference to the safety and precautionary measures. But if at all we really want to reopen, it should be always in a very phased manner and allowing the students to be there on the campus and, to be there in their home in an independent way without having the protective cover of their parents, because the Indian family system has a very different kind of an approach and orientation towards their kids. The kind of a care and the warmth that is being provided by the family members during this crisis is something which they will be devoid of when they are there on the campus. So yes, I feel that till the time everything is being, everyone is being vaccinated and is being properly taken care of, one should not, probably I would consider that as a very inhuman act on the part of the education administrators, because no matter how much care and precautions that we do, the safety measures, the sanitization, everything we do, but campus is and campus space is a space where you can't stop one student to socialize with the others with a lot of precautions and social distancing norms. So at times it will become very difficult for the university management to control and regulate the behavior of the students in terms of the socializing pattern of them. But yes, even when they are on the campus or when they are off the campus, and even today when they're sitting at the home, the kind of a mental health crisis they are facing, that's the reason I say that, that we need to be more human in our approach. We need to shift our focus on learners' needs rather than what we believe is the right thing or what is the learning outcome. Because this is the time wherein we require to have that hand-holding approach and human approach, focusing on their needs. And this is how probably we'd be providing the mental health support. We need to have a lot of one-to-one interactions with them. And I am pretty sure that it is going to increase the load on the part of the faculty members, because they have they're required to reorient the teaching approaches. At the same point in time, all of a sudden they have to be more human, more friendly, more supportive to the students, catering to the needs of each of their concerns and issues is really challenging task for the teachers as well. But this is how probably we need to devise a kind of a mentoring, proper mentoring and support system, even in the offline way. And online, I mean, in the on-campus thing, probably I think it is premature even to think to reopen the campus, no matter we have received a lot of guidelines from the regulatory bodies. But looking to the present crisis and the increasing number of cases, even in India, probably it's a little premature to think about the opening of the campus.
Thank you, Professor Pokhariyal. I've been informed that we do have some latitude with time. So I know Professor Wolff, you need to, you have another commitment. So we'll be sad to see you leave the panel at 1, but we can go on until 2:15.
Maybe Lutz can give his closing remarks before he leaves, probably.
Sure, certainly.
Thank you very much. I unfortunately have to leave because I have another engagement. I apologize for this. This is a fascinating discussion and a very important discussion, I think, which needs to be carried on. I think the last remark about the human aspect about this whole tragedy is very, very important. We need to consider that we are dealing with humans, that all this affects human beings, students, young people who are the future of our countries. And it is for this reason that, of course, health and safety must be absolutely ensured, and that all the other aspects that we are discussing here and in other panels must come second. I will stop here. Thank you very much for having me. It was a pleasure to meeting all you, and I hope to see you again soon in a different forum. Thank you very much. Bye-bye. Best wishes from Hong Kong.
It was a pleasure to have you here as well. Thank you very much.
So may I have this time to, I have to leave, also have an appointment, so I must leave now. And I would like to also thank you very much for this precious opportunity. I learned a lot from your comments, and I hope we can see, although I'm very in favor of the merits of remote learning, but for the next time, I hope I have an opportunity to meet you in person and face to face. Okay, bye-bye.
We all hope the same. Yes, please take care.
Thank you very much. Goodbye.
Bye. There's another particularly important question from the audience, which in different ways our panelists did address, but this is a more pointed question about how to maintain quality standards, especially if social distancing norms would require, in the context of reopening, smaller classrooms with lesser number of people. So in effect, this would mean that the number of lectures would increase. This would also require more number of faculty members. And so how does one in fact maintain the quality of teaching as one has to kind of, really thin out the nature in which teaching is conducted? So maybe Professor Rajkumar, if you could offer some initial comments on that.
Well, no doubt about the fact that, those institutions which are seriously committed towards providing, education with the highest academic standards need to put in the resources. It could be faculty resources, it could be technological resources, it could be new innovations that they need to bring in. I mean, one of the things that I have noticed, I realized, at least more personally in the course of the evolution of our own university, is that if you really want to do it well, it takes enormous financial resources. And that, I think, is unfortunately not sufficiently recognized by many stakeholders. And so we need to be sensitive about the fact that education institutions today, schools, colleges, universities, are under enormous stress to ensure that they are able to provide the best possible, services to the students, to be able to have the necessary faculty members, to ensure that the faculty members' teaching responsibilities are not unreasonably, long and large, so that they are not able to fulfill other commitments. So, in a way, the question that you've asked is almost so central to the idea of institution building in these times. And most of the time, this particular challenge that the education institutions face are not sufficiently appreciated by even those within the institution. I think it's very, very important for us to at least put forth the fact that managing and developing new ideas in the course of the pandemic requires enormous institutional innovation and capacity, while trying to bring as much normalcy to the educational project, requires both commitment and dedication on the part of the faculty, but also, as I mentioned earlier, significant financial resources. And I'll give you an example with regard to financial resources. For example, you mentioned about the teaching responsibility. I think including, for example, people end up doing is that good are also expecting the faculty members to go beyond the call of duty. The faculty members are spending more time than they would normally spend when it comes to physically engaging with the students in the campus. The gradual, let's say, diminishing of the time and in which one meets and have meetings, all of that has changed. People are working during weekends, people are working in late evenings, people are having meetings across time zones in the morning. So in some ways, I have come to believe very strongly that the unsung heroes in this entire COVID-19 crisis happen to be educators, professors, teachers, institution builders, deans of faculties and other administrators, because to ensure that the continuity in education is not in any way affected, and to provide the best possible educational ecosystem for the students, and to protect the interest of the faculty members and the staff is no small task. And I think they deserve a lot more appreciation when it comes to dealing with this.
Thank you,
Yes.
Professor. A particularly important set of thoughts. I wanted to kind of return to all three of you, and maybe we can start with Professor BARIZAH and then Professor Pokhariyal and come back to you, Professor Rajkumar, about, because all three of you have particularly kind of spearheaded the process of making your own institutions respond to the pandemic. So what might have been the most difficult process here? And of course, there's a lot of coordination required, but there's also a certain kind of leadership that's required to overcome some of the key difficulties. So from an administrator's point of view, what might have those key difficulties been, especially those that are so intractable that it frustrates the administrator? Because that, in a certain sense, that also helps us, just the way in which Professor Rajkumar was pointing out, the human side of the person who's leading an institution, instead of just considering that person as this vague thing called the administration.
Thank you. My first.
Please.
Yeah. What is the most difficult challenges? The first, as already Professor Rajku said, that is about how to control the quality of learning process. We do have control through the system, actually, that we have the capacity to monitor by using technology how many minutes the teacher teaching, what is this module or something like that. But some of our lecturers still did it in unprofessional ways, because they do many things, they have many another commitment. So the control is is very difficult. And another second challenge is coordination. The problem is until now, since March until now, the academic staff or academic support or person who are working in the law school are very limited. Just only for few people, but the leader of the school should come to campus, because the vice chancellor and rector are at campus for all time to ensure that everything is running well. business process is running well. We have to think that actually the campus is not closed, but we are still walking. But what we walk is outside the campus. But for faculty leader, we shall enter into campus for every day to ensure that every business process is running well. And the coordination is the big issue, because some of academic staff can claim that I have no equipment to work at home, because all the material, all the data are provided at campus. It is of course difficult to bring a computer from campus to home. That the big challenges that is facing right now. But now is getting to counter by providing them a number of laptops that can be shared, and so there is no reason for them to what we call to excuse for the job. That the challenges that we are facing. Thank you.
Thank you for those frank remarks. Professor Pokhriyal, please.
Yeah, I agree to a great extent with Professor Nurul. Well, yes, coordination is a great time-taking efforts. But apart from that, what I feel that capacity building of the teachers, as I said earlier, shifting the focus, reorienting ourselves as a teacher, because today teachers are also the content creators, right? I need to create a content. I need to create a resources for learning. I need to create a resources for get enhanced experiences of the learning. So, the role of a teacher is being transformed in number of ways. So the capacity building of teachers, their orientation, in the same way, the orientation of the new normal orientation to the students, making them prepare for the online teaching and, online assessment and online quizzes and online collaborative projects and simulations and all these things, requires a greater amount of efforts, and it also includes a lot of coordination on the part of the administrators. In addition to that, I just would like to highlight one point from the earlier discussion, if you may permit. So, Professor Raj has very rightly pointed out with reference to the quality of the teaching, and it requires a greater amount of efforts, finance, and of course on the part of the teachers as well. One thing that is missing out from the whole discourse I have been observing for the last couple of months, are we ready? Are we as a law school be able to prepare ourselves and foresee the future in the context of the curricula? Whether this pandemic is going to transform and going to change the way in which people are getting into the trade, business, and how the legal spectrum is going to be changed. And what are the curriculum alignment that we are required to do? Generally, what we do, the new insolvency law has come, we put it into the curriculum, we add as one of the course, we enhance our elective courses. But as a larger picture, the curriculum and alignment with reference to the post-pandemic challenges the society is going to face, the institutions is going to face, the different institutions of the governance is going to face, and the trade and business is going to face, and how this pandemic is shaping the world around us, and how we are preparing our students with reference to these new orientation, providing them the list of the courses and designing a new curriculum. So that is also probably we need to focus on.
Thanks a lot, Professor Pokhriyal. Professor Rajkumar?
So, OISHIK, I didn't quite fully get the question that you wanted me to answer. I know that both Professor BARIZAH and Professor Pokhriyal did respond. So can you quickly?
Yeah, the question really was that, what are those primary challenges that as administrators you've had to work through? And when I use administrators, I mean, these are human people who are also facing a range of difficulties, not only as leaders of an institution, but those who also have to kind of negotiate other parts of their lives through this pandemic process. So to think about the administration as a human person rather than this kind of,
Well, one of the things that good administrators need to remember is that no good act will go unpunished. So it's a bit, it's a constant thankless work that one has to do. But I think this particular pandemic also, one major challenge that all of us would have faced is that the extraordinary degree of uncertainty on the basis of which one had to take decisions, and one had to follow one's own gut instinct when you do it. So for example, in the month of March, most of us believed that it might just be a month-long problem. And then by April, people were thinking it may be another month or so. And then when May, people began to think it is going to be a couple of more months. So in some ways, we were all trying to, a little bit predict the future, but then consciously aware of the fact that we can't, and hence had to reimagine many things. So I think the most important part of that exercise is that decisiveness in leadership does matter. This is a moment when institutions expected to have decisive leaders. It expected a higher degree of communication. Never before so much of communication was needed across all stakeholders. It also expected people to have high levels of consultation with different stakeholders. Again, in the normal course, one could have taken decisions and did not consult, but since this particular aspect had a huge impact on all stakeholders within the institution, the consultation was definitely a major challenge. The fourth aspect of the leadership that was expected is innovation. Innovation at all levels, be it in examinations, in assessment, in entrance examination, moving towards technology. The fifth was also, of course, making certain investments as a priority, and in that context, make some tough choices and tough decisions. So in a way, it has been a very continuous journey. It's not even over yet, as Dr. Pokhariyal seems to be much more confident about the fact that we'll all get a vaccine soon and we will be vaccinated in the next several months. And I would like to believe that. But the point is, we are constantly working in that space in which there is so much of uncertainty, but yet we need to decide as if we know it. And that's not easy because, and people, particularly students and their parents and others who believe in our institutions and our leadership also expect us to provide that guidance, that direction, that sense of confidence when we don't have it ourselves. So in a way, there is so much that goes into in all of us who are doing what we're doing. But I must say that the heart of this type of activity or leadership is more about taking responsibility in one's decisions rather than asserting what one does with the sense of confidence, frankly, which does not exist. All of us are learning and constantly reinventing ourselves, and we are reimagining and transforming not just the institutions, but also ourselves in this process.
Thanks a lot, Professor Rajkumar. I think that's quite a telling note to bring the session to a conclusion. In fact, what you said, because a lot of this period has been a period of gloom and disdain and worry. And so, you use the word uncertainty. I think uncertainty is accompanied by contradictions. We are kind of second guessing our moves while trying to be confident. It kind of reminded me of the German theater practitioner Bertolt Brecht's, very well-known quote where he said that in the contradiction lies the hope. So I guess, that's what we would possibly have to hold on to, at least to imagine what a post-pandemic reopened campus might be like, even if it's something that is only a blueprint as of now. So I take this opportunity to thank all of our panelists for taking out the time and for sharing your very important thoughts. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And thank you so much,
Thank you.
Pokhariyal, and thank you, Mr. BARIZAH, and thank you,
Thank
OISHIK,
you
for
very
sharing.
much.